Hi everyone, this is Sherrie Clark, and welcome to Courage to be Seen. This show's for anyone who longs to take charge of their life, to create more success, accomplish their dreams, and to live in inspiring ways to be powerfully visible and visibly powerful. I will be sharing stories with you from my own career and experiences, from leading engineering teams for the last 20 years, and also from interactions I have been blessed to have with people I've met from around the world. I want to give you the tools, techniques, strategies, and inspiration so you can be the best you. You can achieve the success you desire, personally and professionally. Being authentic, confident, and empowered are the keys to success and the life that you want. You can have the courage to be seen. Hi, I'm Sherrie Clark, and welcome to Courage to be Seen, the show that helps you achieve the success that you desire. I'll share with you the tools and techniques, stories and strategies, so you can achieve the success that you've always wanted, to help you be more authentic, more confident, more empowered. The keys, the 3 keys to success. You know, I always end the show with encouraging you to check out my website, but I thought I'd start it today. So my website is couragetobeseen.com. You can find out a lot of information about me, my coaching program. There's links there on how to contact me. I love to get feedback. If there's a topic that you'd like me to talk about on the show, or something you'd like me to include, just drop me an email, and I'd love to talk to you. So with that, let's get started. My question for you today is, if you think about your life, right now, what comes to mind? I bet you, if I could guess what you're thinking about, it has something to do with the uncertainty that's going on in the world around us. We've been in this kind of crazy world now for 18 months with COVID. And I think it's clear to all of us, life's not going back to normal, whatever that is. Like, we're not going back into anything. It's just been too long. You can't say I want it to return. In fact, some people probably don't even remember what life was like before COVID. Like, our lives have just changed just too much. So if you think about where you are today, what's the future hold? And what do you want it to be? And it doesn't really matter to me, what you want your future to hold. It doesn't matter what you might be thinking about. Some people think about where they want to live. Now that a lot of people are working from home, maybe you're hoping that you can continue that, and you want to see, could I move to a different part of the country? Other people can't work remotely. That's just not an option. Some people are very worried about their kids in school, and they're still questioning, is it safe for them to be attending? What kind of protocols are put in place? Should we have masks? Should we not have masks? How about, is it safe to travel? I know I love to travel. We have not traveled nearly as much as we normally would or did a couple years ago, but I can't say I have traveled zero, because I think I go stir crazy. So I have traveled, and relatively probably travel more than most. Some people are really wanting to change jobs right now. One big one that comes up when I talk to a lot of people is, how do you want your relationships to change as you go forward? Who are those important people in your life, especially the ones that have became clear to you over the last 18 months, how important, how much they mean to you? How do you spend more time with them as we go forward? Not get so caught up in the craziness of life and everything that we've done so much. Also, who are those people that maybe take up too much time in your life, or they sap your energy? They have that negativity around them, and maybe is there a way now you could get them out of your life? So we could think about all these different things, and all the potential changes, or all the things you want to do differently in your life as you go forward. But no matter what they are, if you're going to make a change in your life, it takes courage. And it's been a while since we've talked about courage on this show. I mean, that's the name, Courage to Be Seen. We've talked about courage in the past. I've definitely done, a lot of info on courage, but I thought it was time, as we finish out 2021, as we get ready to go into 2022, that we retouch on courage, because it's a foundation of so much that we do and what we want to do. And we have to have more courage. In fact, it was funny. I was visiting the chiropractor the other day, and that was the topic we were discussing. Just like we need, and so many people in this world need to have more courage. We need to have the ability to have courage, but some people don't know how. It's scary. I get it. Maybe it's courage to even have those small discussions. Think about what's so in the news right now of, to have a discussion with someone, vaccination or don't vaccinate, mask or no mask. How do you go up to someone that doesn't have a mask on that you wish they did? Or maybe you don't want to have a mask and have a conversation with someone on why you don't want to have a mask. Like I said, I'm not here to judge what the conversation is, but it all takes courage, even for those little things that we face every day, day in, day out. And when you don't have the courage, when you don't have the tools, that's where we see these crazy behaviors. People are just acting in bizarre ways, acting out, that it seems like people are so much more inconsiderate today than they ever would. And you could say that's because we don't have the tools. People are just frustrated, and we need to figure out how to have those conversations. How can you have the courage so you can have the life that you want? It's your life, the life that you want. Courage doesn't mean that you're not ever afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. This is a great quote by Bethany Hamilton. It doesn't mean that you don't get afraid. It just means that you don't let it stop you. That's courage. You have to keep going. You have to make decisions and change in your life to have the life that you want. Because if you don't make decisions, if you don't take action, it's not the life you want. You're going to get whatever you get stuck with, and that's not what we want. And you have to remember, when we think of courage, if you think of heroes and Superman and firefighters and military, and yes, all those take courage. Absolutely. But that's not necessarily the courage that we're talking about. We're not just talking about courage to do big, gigantic things. We're talking about the small things. How about the courage to say, I love you, to someone that you either haven't or haven't in a while, because there's been some kind of conflict or rift between you. Courage shows up in so many ways. We all could have a little bit more courage. So courage is defined as the ability to do something that frightens one, or mental or moral strength to persevere, to withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. It implies a firmness of mind and will in the face of danger or extreme difficulty. It is difficult to say, I'm sorry. That's courage. Yes, it's difficult to run into a burning building. I'm going to leave that to the firefighters. But I want to help you have everyday courage in all parts of your life. I want to help you first understand, how courage applies to everything that we do. And then we're going to talk about things that you can start doing today so you can start practicing courage. It's like any muscle. The more that you practice courage, the easier it gets. It's like you want it to be your default. You want to take action, and you have to have courage to do that. Courage has just been this theme of mine for a long time. It was probably, about 10 years ago or so, I took a class. And ever since then, I really realized if I wanted to have the life that I wanted, if I wanted to do the things that in my head, like, yes, this is what I want to do, I had to learn how to have more courage to do that. And so, yes, it seems great. I'm going to be more courageous. And I worked on it. But as much as I worked on it, I was still pretty much a perfectionist at that time. So I thought I was working on being courageous, but I didn't realize to be courageous, there's that piece of being vulnerable. Because what is being vulnerable? That means like you put yourself out there, but you don't understand, you can't control the outcome, and you do it anyway. So you think being courageous, just let's take the firefighters running the building. They don't control the outcome. They take as much care as they can so they get back out safely, but they don't know. When you put yourself out there and you say, I'm going to have that tough discussion with somebody, you don't know how they're going to respond. That takes courage. It takes vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable to be courageous. You can't do one without the other. That's the piece I missed. So as we go forward, keep that in mind, that it's not I'm going to be courageous and people are going to see how brave I am. In reality, is you have to open yourself up and be vulnerable, and that allows yourself to be courageous. It's really a miss that I had very early on, because like I said, I was still probably trying to be a little too perfect, and you can't be perfect when it comes to this stuff. You have to admit you're going to make mistakes. That's the only way we learn. We have to keep practicing, moving forward, taking that risk, being vulnerable. Sometimes it's just the best to just admit that you don't really know, but you're going to take that step forward anyway. You're going to have faith that it's going to somehow work out, and you can figure it out. Brene Brown is actually one of my favorite authors. She has many, many books out now. I couldn't even tell you which one was probably my favorite, or which one that you should read. But she talks a lot around being courageous, being vulnerable, and the tie between the two. She also has a show. It's called The Call to Courage. I recommend you see it. It's on Netflix. And there's a great quote in there. It's not about changing who you are. It's about being who you are. And think about that. With all this, and you think about, what kind of life do you want? I'm not telling you to be someone different, but I'm saying have the courage to be who you are. Live the life that you want. Live a life that you intend. You don't have to change. You have to be who you really are. And you'll find so much happiness in that. So first thing I want to do is I want to go over the areas of courage, like how courage shows up every day in your life. I created the Clark Courage model because a lot of people don't really think about. They think about the physical courage. They think about the big things you can go do, but they forget about the small things. And many times it's the small things, the things that we don't think about, that you need to practice having courage on first. So there's 5 elements of courage. And the first one let's talk about is physical courage. It's the easiest to identify. It's the easiest one to talk about. It's the most often thought about. If you think about courage, it's I want to do something physical that's courageous, right? Run in front of a moving car to save someone, like these big physical feats that you do. And yes, it is all very courageous. Our military, they are so courageous. I can't speak enough, about how courageous they are, but it is only one piece of being courageous. The athletes and everything that people do, people work very hard to be courageous. So, let's not focus only on that though. So yes, let's acknowledge it. Physical courage. That's probably the first and easiest one for us to think about. So I'm not going to dig in too deep because you probably already understand that element of courage. Emotional courage. This is the willingness to feel. Emotional courage. It's easy to not address your feelings, to just shove them down and not pay attention to them, or just deny they have them. I have to admit, some of this came up for me this year with my father passing away. Some days I didn't want to feel, right? Some days it's just easier to not pretend it didn't happen, because that's not true. It did happen and I knew it, but you know what? It's just like too much. I could only handle it so much at one time. Now, however, if you hold in too much and hold it down for too long, that just creates its own problems. You have to have the willingness to feel. You can think about sometimes we have trouble knowing that we should do something, but we just completely avoid it because we know the way it's going to make it feel. Like, I know that's going to be tough. I don't want to do it. It's probably one of the most important elements of courage that we don't address because it's just hard and it's easy to just pretend it's not happening. So I want you to be true to yourself. Don't deny that you have emotions. Don't deny how you feel about things. And that's the first step in the having more emotional courage. It's a great example of being vulnerable, and you know what the best thing is around, if you're thinking, oh, how do I have more emotional courage? You could start just having more emotional courage for yourself. Like, you don't have to actually tell anyone else. You can like write it out in a diary. You could just talk to the mirror. Maybe you want to pray in church. Like, there's a lot of things, but at least start admitting it to yourself. That's the first step to have more emotional courage. The next one is moral courage, standing up for one's beliefs and injustice. This can be difficult, that maybe you need to say something to someone else. And it's kind of like rocking the boat, like you don't want to do it. Maybe you're seeing someone being bullied. There was a horrible article I read about a woman actually on a bus in I think it was Philadelphia, and she was raped, and there were people there, and no one did anything. Eventually, 911 got called, and the guy was arrested. But the fact that no one wanted to stand up and say, "Hey, this is something we should do something about." We want to have more moral courage and stand up for others, stand up for what we believe in, stand up for things that are right. The next one is social courage and not conforming to the expectations of others. It's easy to just go with the flow, just go with the pack. Everyone else is doing it. Even if you think it's not right, I'll just follow along. Or maybe you're thinking like, I'm going to make a decision because I'm worried about the judgment of others, or this is just kind of the way to go. I'm afraid if I decide something else, and how will people view me? So we don't speak up with our real way. I always say a great example of this is when people ask you, "Hey, what do you want to have for dinner tonight?" "Oh, whatever. What restaurant do you want to go to?" Wherever you want. And that's totally fine, because many times I don't care, But what you don't want to do is say like, "Well, I really want to go to the Italian restaurant, but I don't want to tell anybody that. I'll just go with wherever people want." Or, "What movie do you want to go see?" And there's a movie that you want to see, but you say, whatever you want, like, have that conviction to at least say what you want if you have a preference. The worst thing is you talk about, someone says, "Well, I don't care, whatever you want." And then the second person suggests something. No, I don't want to go there. And then they suggest something else. No, I don't want to go there. Like, you do have an opinion, but you're just not saying it. So have the courage to say that opinion. And then the last element of courage is intellectual courage. And this is challenging old beliefs. I actually think this is a really, really good exercise, that you need to challenge your own beliefs and think about it from another's point of view. I like to do this actually with my husband, and we talk about, okay, like, this is how we believed it, but what if we looked at it the other way? How is someone else, why are their beliefs different than ours? How can they believe that? And this is intellectual courage, that you're willing to challenge, you're willing to change all your beliefs. So if you want to practice more courage and you want to feel fear, but then act anyway, I want to give you a few keys, how you can start implementing today and start taking action. Hopefully these elements of courage gave you some insight of where you could be courageous in your own life. But now you actually have to take some action. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Nelson Mandela. That's a great quote. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear. People that are courageous have fear. It's a triumph over the fear. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, right? We have to feel, but he who conquers that fear. You have to take action anyway. So a couple of things that you can do if you want to have more courage. The first one is actually seems quite simple. I want you to name your fear or your phobia. You know, what is that? This can be done a variety of different ways. It can be done through journaling. It can be done, talking with others. But if you have a fear, you have to admit it. So giving that fear a name, talk about it, acknowledge it. It's kind of that emotional courage thing, right? We just shove it down and pretend it didn't exist. That's not being very courageous. But if you admit you're scared of something, you're afraid for something, it almost like diffuses that fear a little bit. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to just now do anything because you named your fear, but it's not as strong once it's like out in the open. Like it took some of the power away from it. A second way that you can have more courage is to give someone a compliment. And I'm not saying a fake compliment and just like compliment everybody all the time, but acknowledge when someone really did a good job. It's a way to be more courageous because one, you have to acknowledge they did it. You have to put yourself out there. You have to let them know that you saw them. So if you give someone a good compliment, it's a way that you can practice being more courageous. The third way that you can practice being more courageous is saying no when it's appropriate. You know, it's actually easier to say yes. So if you get asked to bring brownies tomorrow, sure, I'll do it. And then you're like, man, I don't have time to do it. I don't have the ingredients, all this kind of stuff, right? If it really is inappropriate, say no. Protect your time, protect your calendar. Do you want to do that this weekend? If you don't want to do whatever you're invited to go do this weekend, you need to say no. Create those boundaries and have the courage to say no. So I'm not saying say no to everything, but have the courage wherever it's appropriate to say no. The next thing is practice asking for what you want. Start with little things that maybe don't matter. Hey, I want to go try that new restaurant down the street. I'd like to watch this TV show. Maybe it's to your significant other and, hey, let's watch this on the TV today. Or let's not change the channel while I'm watching the show. It could be whatever it is, but start with something small and say, hey, this is what I would like. This is what I'd like to go do, and share that with others. Another way that you can be courageous is you can forgive someone and truly let it go. It takes a lot of courage to be forgiving and not hold that inside of you forever. Be courageous and truly forgive people and let it go. The next way that you can be courageous is find something new to try. And it can be really anything. In fact, we should do more of this kind of courage because we're not expected to be good at everything, right? We have to start at the beginning. So maybe you want to take a painting class. I like to do some of those where like they instruct and they help you with the painting. And some of mine are okay, but in reality, they're not that great, right? But you want to go try something new. Maybe you want to go nature and learn birds or flowers or take a cooking class or a foreign language, or it doesn't actually matter what your interests might be. Or maybe it's something that you just never done. You don't even know if it interests you. But be courageous and try something. Risk failing at it. Risk being horrible at it. It's okay if you've never cooked and you take a cake baking class and the cake all falls apart and it's no good. You know what? That's courageous that you tried. The last thing I will ask you to think about as a way to be courageous is have a conversation with somebody that has views different than you. I've done this sometimes at networking events. You start talking with somebody and really start asking them questions about like what they do or why they believe in something the way they do. And don't judge them. Don't wonder if they're right or wrong, but try to really like kind of put yourself in their shoes and learn from them. When they have views different than you, like you can learn so much from that. And so often in this day and age, we just say like, this is my box, and I stick with people that I agree with. And I even sometimes try to find podcasts that have opinions that I actually don't agree with, because other people have different opinions, and you can learn from them, like where are they coming from? So put yourself out there occasionally and have that conversation with someone that's different. It could be someone from a different gender, a different race, a different background, a different area of study. It doesn't really matter how it's different, but like someone that's not someone you normally would talk about or talk to. So with this, I hope today, I've given you some ideas of ways that you can have more courage in your life. It's a key that if we're going to be successful, if we're going to drive change, you have to have courage. You can't drive change without it. So until next time, I encourage you to subscribe to this wherever you listen to your podcast so you can get a notification when the next show comes in. Check out my website, like I said at the beginning of the show, and send me a note. Let me know how you like this. Is it useful? Where I could expand? What other topics you'd like me to talk about? Until then, I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you've been inspired to take action on at least one thing starting today. To learn more, check out couragetobeseen.com. There you'll find my blog and additional resources, including you can download a copy of 10 Ways to Live a More Courageous Life. Thanks again for listening, and make sure you tune in next time to learn additional ways to have the courage to be seen in your own life.